Reach high, aim high, and obtain.
Welcome to TaylorIt. If you're like me, you might have had carpet or flooring in your home for a while, and it's time to transition. I'm transitioning from carpet to hardwood floors. That's my preference, is to have hardwood floors. In this instance, as you can see, I'm doing my bedroom. Why? My carpet has seen its heyday and it's 16 years old. Although I don't use shoes in my house, and certainly not my bedroom, you know wear and tear occurs on floor and it's time to replace it. So I tend to go with hardwood floors. Now the reason for that is with hardwood floors, the care, the cleaning, and the maintenance is greatly reduced compared to carpet. 2, you don't have to worry about the off-gassing that comes from having carpet. 3, you don't have to worry about replacing it so frequently. 4, in addition to that, if you ever do need to do any kind of touch-ups to the floor because maybe the sun has come through and bleached it, all you need is to have it sanded down, stain the hardwood floors, whatever color you want, and then have it finished to seal and protect for longevity. Now to do this transition from carpet to hardwood floors, or any flooring you have, you'll need some tools. I'm doing the approach of transitioning from carpet to hardwood floors. So hardwood floors, true hardwood floors, are usually 3/4 inch floors. They are tongue and groove. So pick your flooring, take your time, and find the one that works best for you, that calls to you. You also need what's called quarter round. This is used along the edges on the baseboards of the room that you're putting the hardwood floors into, so you get that finished look. You will need a nail gun. You can either rent or purchase one. Either way, ensure that the plate height is adjustable to the level of floor chosen and adjusted accordingly. Staples will be needed for your nail gun to secure the floors. Ensure the nails selected work in your gun and will fully secure the floors. Next, you will need a nail finishing gun. Why? Because when you get to the final rows of installation, you need to be able to get the floors in while using the special nails for that finishing gun to secure the floors. When removing carpet, you will need a tool for carpet and padding removal. You can get one that's electric or you can get one that's more handheld. Rope will be needed to be able to tie the flooring up you are removing when it's carpet. Pliers are used during wood floor installation to remove nails when they have been stapled in and they have messed up, which does happen occasionally. You also need a staple remover to remove the staples that have been nailed into your floor from the padding underneath the carpet. You will need a dolly to remove furniture and other heavy items from the room. A hammer is part of the removing and prepping of the floor. A vacuum dedicated to construction activities that is used in prepping and finishing of the floors. This will prevent chemicals and other construction residue from contaminating the rest of your living space. You will need a crowbar, and that's for during the finishing process. You will need a bucket. Trust me, it's essential. You will need furniture rollers for before, during, and after. Wood putty to address the oops you didn't see in the end. It's the fill-in for professional finish. Reversible clamps for securing the final rows in the finishing process while using your finishing nail gun. Wood glue. Trust me, you're going to need it. It does help and you will need it. The fabulous thing also about wood glue is once you glue it in that spot, it permanently stays good in that specific spot. Staple gun, ideally a cordless staple gun for prepping when using optional materials underneath the hardwood floors. Chalk line creator for squaring of the room's wood floors as part of the prepping of the floor. A level for setting up the first 3 to 4 rows of wood floor installation. A rubber mallet, this typically comes with the nail gun and is used to protect the items in the room and the floor as you install. Painter's plastic for protecting items in the room that are unable to be removed for before, during, and after installation. Power cord splitter for during installation, since you need power to the tools being used. a table saw and miter saw for during installation to make cuts to the wood being installed, a multi-purpose tool for cutting the door trim for the wood floors to fit right into the groove of the doors. Ear protection. There are two versions, the ones that are pushed into the ears or over-the-ear protection. I prefer the over-ear protections since they aren't a single-use item, have a long life, and prevent ear issues since wax, etc. isn't being pushed into the ear. Eye protection for when wood is being cut and nails pulled or hammered as needed during installation that can cause flying metal. Ideally, you'll want to use knee pads or a cushion of some kind to protect your knees, especially when you're putting in wood floors, because you're going to be on your knees quite a bit doing this. You'll need air tool oil for the maintenance of your air gun. Some felt cushions for protecting your floors after installation. Now the next thing is a moisture barrier and a soundproofing cork barrier or layer. These are optional and personal preference based. The cork layer provides a layer of soundproofing, and the moisture barrier is more for humid climates. Be cautious when using a cork layer if your hardwood floors are going to connect to stairs, as this will change the height of the floors and potentially impact the code requirements of the perfect rise required. And lastly, the buddy system. This is optional, but frankly, it's something that is essential to getting it done and getting it done fast. Who's my buddy? My buddy's my dad, and this is the project we did together. Because of the size of my bed, as well as the way the posts on my bed are made, we needed a way of moving the bed, not only during construction, but also after construction happens onto the new floors that we were putting down, which is hickory. To address this need, my dad built a wooden frame base. For that, he attached to piano wheels and sized it to fit right inside the holes of the posts of my bed. As you can see here, my dad made a master template. Once we had the template created while the bed was still on the carpet floors, my dad used a jack to raise my bed in the center. Also, we put a cushion in between the jack and the bottom footer frame of my bed to protect the wood. While the bed was being jacked up, we put the template inside to see if it worked, and it did. Knowing the template worked, we made more templates for the remaining 3 posts of my bed that was followed by what you can see here. Raising the bed with a jack and cushion between the surfaces, placing the piano wheels attached to the created framing inside the holes of the post, and once they were in place, lowering the bed down slowly to ensure the needed alignment of the created frames with the holes of the bed's columns. As you can see, that the bed had to be raised again to ensure we had a good fit, so that as the bed was lowered, it was perfectly in the slots needed to begin moving the bed. We did both sides this way, starting at the footer of the bed. 1, because it wasn't against the wall, and 2, because we had a little bit more maneuverability at the footer because of the space between the bed and the wall itself versus the back where it was literally against the wall. Once we had the wheels installed on the post of my bed, we were finally able to maneuver it around, and it was time to turn our attention to the carpet. To remove carpet, you're going to need a tool of some kind. My dad found his best tool was the blade. There are other options out there for carpet removal, but he discovered using a regular cobalt blade worked best for him. Now, carpet consists of multiple layers. There's the carpet that you see and walk on every day. Underneath that is a padding layer, which gives the carpet that extra nice cushion when you walk on it. The padding is held down by staples, like what you use when it comes to stapling a piece of paper. The carpet itself is held down by tack board, a thin piece of wood with carpet nails sticking up in a reverse arch from the rim that are tiny. The design of the tack board is what facilitates installation of the carpet. Typically, when installing carpet, installers use what is called a carpet stretcher. A carpet stretcher grabs the carpet and is used to pull it excessively taut. By pulling the carpet taut and pushing it down towards the ground, followed by releasing it from the carpet stretcher. When the carpet reverses from the tautness, it reverses back from that tension, and that is what grabs the carpet nails, holding it in place. So to begin with the preparation process, you must remove the carpet. Like I said, my dad preferred a blade. It worked great. We started out right in front of my door, creating a one-way effect so we could begin the process. Once the carpet was removed, that's when the rope comes in handy, and you roll up the carpet cut out. Depending on how big you have cut that roll of carpet, you may need a buddy. Because the first section removed from my room was a very small piece, only one person was required in this instance, because as you can see, it was only 2 to 3 feet wide. Once the carpet layer is removed and secured in a roll with rope or something to contain it so that you can pull it out of the room, the next layer to address is the padding. The padding you can lift up, roll, and remove. However, when this happens, all the staples used to hold the padding in place remains back typically, because the padding isn't very thick, but it is purposeful. Sometimes it leaves portions of the padding underneath the staples, depending on how tight the staple was put in. Other times, it will just leave the staple behind. Either way, you want to remove the padding by rolling it up and securing it like the carpet with your rope. Next to address is the tack that was holding the carpet in place. Although we will be addressing the removal of the staples and the remaining padding on the floor, for safety reasons and efficiency, it's best to address the tack board at this point. Because this is inside the house and you're down to the baseboards that are the main structure of the room for any flooring, etc. Of course, it also depends on the year your house was built, but typically, this is when you hit the subfloor. You will need to take special care in protecting the starting strength of your room's floor. To address these needs, we went to the dollar store and we grabbed some special felt cushions because we knew I was going to need it for my furniture once the hardwood floors were installed, and we also knew we wanted to put it on his screwdriver tool to protect our subfloor. The screwdriver tool, that I view as a type of crowbar, is one of my dad's favorite tools and works great for removing tackboard, especially with a protective felt cushion attached. To remove the tackboard, my dad pushed the screwdriver tool in between the subfloor and tackboard, lifting and leveraging the angle of his tool in incremental sections for removal. This process removes the tackboard from the subfloor with the carpet nails sticking up in a reverse arch. Depending on the size of your room, you may find tackboard in the middle of the room, so don't be surprised if this occurs when you pull up your carpet, as it's because of the way the room was designed. Due to the design and construction of the tackboard, I suggest wearing gloves and be careful handling because it is nails. The nails may be smaller than your average nails, but they are still nails and they can give you a puncture. Also, factoring in their potential age, not good. I suggest using a 5-gallon bucket or any kind of container that you can put the tackboard in that can handle construction type materials, so you don't have to worry about something getting damaged. We tend to use a 5-gallon bucket from the hardware store, and you can take all the tack removed, put it in the bucket, and ultimately use the bucket to strategically remove the contents from the room for disposal. Once you've addressed removing of the tackboard, it's time to turn your attention to the staples that are still on the floor that held the padding in place. Since the carpet nails are no longer adhered to the floor or in the room, it's time to get on the floor and pull out the staple remover. I found a great one on Amazon that was very affordable, especially because we knew it was going to be a construction staple remover and not for an office type setting. When we collected the staples for removal, we like using a tiny bowl. In this instance, my dad repurposed a tiny metal container used with something else that was perfect for what we were doing at the time, and it was in the room, so we decided to use it. You can use any type of container, even a Tupperware container. You are simply looking for something to hold all the staples in because you don't want to leave one behind. Take your time here since you want to make sure you remove every staple, and that way you're starting from a good point because otherwise it's not going to be pretty. This is going to take time and it's going to be a challenge, but once you've got all of it, It will be amazing how the room looks so empty and barren just having those few things removed. With the carpet, padding, tackboard, and staples removed, you should now be working with a bare floor. At this point, you want to bring out a construction-specific vacuum. Years ago, I found a fabulously affordable vacuum for $30 to $40 at the time after taxes on Amazon. That was both a wet and dry vacuum that we designated specifically for construction. We do have other vacuums, however, we didn't want to contaminate them with the chemicals from the carpet and the padding because there is a residue, and it was especially true in this instance with my carpet. My dad said at one point that the padding was literally just falling apart in his hands, so it leaves behind a very powdery residue. Even when the padding is not falling apart, you really need to clean the floor. We took our construction-specific wet-dry vacuum, put it in the dry vacuum function, and vacuumed the entire floor to ensure start with a clean, bare, basic floor because you don't want those powders and chemical residues you just took out still in your home. Still on your floors, underneath what you're getting ready to put down, especially when it's something as nice as wood floors. It just doesn't work. You can see my dad use the wet dry vacuum to remove the residues off the floor. Once the vacuuming is complete, you can really start turning your attention to installation because now you've got it down to the bare basics of if the room was installed for the first time. In our instance, because of the height and the way that my room was designed regarding the baseboards, we didn't have to remove the main baseboards. Typically, you would remove the main baseboards at this time using something like a putty knife and a hammer to tap the putty knife between the wall and the baseboards so that you can remove them. There are nails associated with baseboards, so wear gloves and be careful with placement after removal. As you remove the baseboards, I suggest numbering them as you remove them so that you can keep them in order, which facilitates putting them back in place exactly where they went. Otherwise, there may be potential difficulty re-identifying where each portion of the baseboards went, so make sure to number them. Typically, you would remove the baseboards. Remember to number them before you remove them. However, we didn't remove the baseboards because in this instance, the baseboard height, limited amount of time we had to get this done, along with the fact I frankly wanted back in my room, determined they didn't need to be removed. I was sleeping on an air mattress while we were doing this project, and it wasn't pleasant. My point being is typically you would remove the baseboards, but the other thing that is fabulous about hardwood floors is there's a little bit of give when it comes to laying the floor. You need to get what's called quarter round, and this is when the quarter round comes in handy. Literally, you take the quarter round after you've got everything taken care of, and you want to go around the entire room using a miter saw to create the special angled cuts to make each piece of the quarter round come together one on top of the other in perfect alignment. And you want to number the quarter round so that you know the order it goes into the room at. Once you've created the quarter round set up for the room, take the quarter round you've cut out of the room, put it in a strategic spot so that it's protected. Because my baseboards are white, we ended up taking the time to paint the quarter round we bought with a white trim paint that was in my room to ensure it would match beautifully and it gets a beautiful finish. You will also need a piece of quarter round to act as a template. By the word template, I mean that as the wood floor is installed, you can place that quarter round template against the right side because you typically install wood floors from left to right, and that is so you can hit the tongue, which is the protruding portion of the tongue and groove system under the walking surface of the wood during install to remove any gaps. This approach ensures the flooring is perfectly placed against the wall and it protects the hardwood on top because the tongue you don't see. Once you get to the far right against the wall, you may have to make a cut to the piece of wood. I suggest checking your boxes that are currently open of hardwood floor for potential change-out pieces before making a cut, as you may find another board that can replace it and prevent cutting of the hardwood floor piece. If you can't find a piece that works, when making cuts to the hardwood floor, always cut the tongue part or side of the wood. This approach provides the ability to potentially use the piece cut off as the starting point of the next row or the finishing rows to the room. Until the project is complete, keep all pieces of wood, as they may end up having a purpose. When installing the last piece in a row of wood flooring, you will need the template piece of quarter round because you place the template quarter round right up against the wall on the right side on top of the hardwood floor being installed. And in the event you maybe cut the piece of wood too short, or because of the length of the wood from where you are alternating, it might be just a little bit short from the wall. This is where you can take the template quarter round, put it right up against the wall, and you can see if there are any gaps. If there is no gap with the cut that was potentially made, or it's the wood itself up touched, you're good to go on to the next row. If there is a gap, then you need to place the quarter round down visually. That's when you know, I'm going to need to replace this with a different piece of hardwood floor. And this approach provides a guide as you're doing the installation process. The next step in preparation to installation is utilizing a multi-purpose tool with an offset blade. Now the reason for that is you can see what my dad is doing here. Is you actually take the piece of hardwood floor you're going to be installing, flip it upside down so that you're not damaging the surface of the wood floor, putting it right up against the frame of the door and the notch of the frame so that the wood floor will fit underneath it, because otherwise you will not have a pretty finish. The reason for the offset blade is because it gives the perfect angle to be able to go straight on top of the hardwood floor and obtain a perfectly square and straight angle. I found from my dad's history and during this installation, he said you just can't use anything other than a multi-purpose tool with an offset blade for this step. He said the reason is because otherwise there's no chance of making sure that the angle is straight across. He said he's tried it before, other people have tried it, and this is just the best way of getting the door frame perfectly notched for the wood floors. You can see, obviously, depending on your needed installation, you may have to do all sides of the door frame, but this approach makes it so much easier. And you can see how quick he's doing it, as he's already done one side in just a few moments. As a result, within a minute or two, he's completely done notching all sides of this door frame. Now you're ready to go for next steps. This is when you start looking at installing your floors. Now, if you've decided to do a moisture layer or even the cork layer for soundproofing, this is when you want to be addressing those next. But until that has happened, you'll want to hold off on installing the wood floors. This is all the prep work to begin installation. You can see, even though the notching doesn't take a long time, it is critical to getting that professional look on your floors, because after doing all the effort of removing the carpet, padding, tack board, staples, and vacuuming the floors, there's no denying there is a lot of prep work involved in wood floor or floor installation in general. But with wood floors, true wood floors, at least 3/4 inches, that's where the longevity is going to be long term. We did notch the door frame, and as you can see, he did the inside and out of the closet area here, because we didn't just do my room when we did installation. We replaced the whole top floor's flooring because it was time. Like I said, it was over 16 years old, and my dad found out as he was lifting the padding on the floor for removal, everything was just falling apart because, like I said, it had seen its heyday and it was time to replace. So we have taken out the carpet, we've taken out the padding, we took out all the staples, and you can see the residue right there of the staples that were actually in the subflooring here. And then once we did all that, we vacuumed all the sides to get all the residue and the dust that was left from the carpet and the underpinning. And you can see we removed everything out of my room, including my closet, except for the needed tools, which is the vacuum we used. And this is actually a wet and dry vacuum that helped us when we actually had a leak from one of the bathrooms that got into our carpet at one point, which is part of why we're doing this change. But the main thing we're doing here is we use this dry to actually vacuum all the dust and residue that was in here. This is the closet area, emptied. You can see it's a good sized closet, but because it flows into the bedroom that I have here, we need to make sure that we do both when we do one. We do all that connects room-wise. So I've taken all the bedding out. We do still have my curtains left, and we will be taking that out before we actually put in the wood floors, because we don't want the dust as we nail in the new floors. And we're getting hickory, which I'm really excited about. Some of the hardest wood there is, and it has a long last to it because it is so hard. Let's go through and check all the nails. Now why I say this is, you hear that? That's because the nail wasn't fully nailed in. Now when it comes to carpet, that's not so much of a problem because that's hidden and you won't feel it by the padding and that carpet itself. However, when you're putting in more floors, that's gonna make things unlevel. So you wanna make sure, see, now it's nailed. Oh, that one's not. There we go. Now those are in. That looks like, yep, that's a nail. Boy, that one's really sticking up. And there we go, that one's fixed. And so just kind of check it. You can see right here. Just want to go through and check to make sure everything's really nailed down well. Again, that stuff you're not going to really notice when you have carpet, if it's off here and there. But on wood floors, that's going to make a difference into the sound as you walk. It's going to make a difference in reference to if the floor is level or not. So really make sure you go through and check it. And they do everything in a box pattern when it comes to laying down your subfloor. So you can see right here, you can actually see the discoloration of the nails that they originally put in, and it goes like this. And you can actually see the seams of the subfloor here, and you'll want to go through each line and make sure everything is really nailed in great. Get a hammer that has quite a bit of weight to it, not too much that you can't, manipulate it or use it. But this one isn't a light hammer. It's got quite a bit of weight on it, but not so much that I can't really work with it. Now, if I need to, I can really pull it back and really drive this hammer against the nails that are still kind of sticking up in here. So I'm gonna finish going through and do the best I can. Obviously, I can't get to that area, and that's understandable. But as soon as I can, once we've put in the floors from there to here, then I can go through and I can check the nails over there, make sure we're good, and I'll have my beautiful new room to come back to. Hopefully it won't take too long to do this, but usually when me and my dad come in and do flooring together, for where we're living at the time, it really works out great because it's not too much on one person, and that way I can lay it as he's actually nailing the floors in, and it makes things a lot easier. We've actually done the whole bottom floor of the house we're in currently together, and we're doing this because it needed to get done. My carpet has seen its heyday. So I'm glad we're doing this, and it's the floor that I absolutely love and I'm looking forward to, and I have visually seen in this room since the day that we moved in. So I'm really excited about this, but I'm getting this taken care of so that we can continue on with the project. But the first thing we are going to do is actually put down this. It's called a silicone moisture barrier, and what it's designed to do is actually help when it comes to moisture and humidity, and we live in a very humid climate here. So this makes sure that not only is it protecting the wood from the moisture because of the heat and contract that happens with the change of the seasons, but also it's going to provide, according to our person that we talked to, it's also going to provide a little bit of a soundproofing because it's not going to have that cushion underneath that we had historically. So here it is, and what I did is I tucked it under the baseboard, and you can see what we also did here is we cut a little bit of this. We actually took one of the boards, took just a little strip of this, put it on top of the board to protect the wood, and then we cut this trim here so that when we do the laying of the floors, the board's actually going to go under. The board's actually going to go underneath this when we cut the when we start placing the boards. So I tucked this underneath, and that's so I have a good place where it's not going to curl, and at the same time it's going to make sure it goes underneath where the wood's going to be going to. Now, one thing we didn't do, but it's not going to be as obvious, is normally you would take off these baseboards. And once you take the baseboards off, then you would put the wood floors down, so it would actually go underneath the baseboards. But because of the way that they did my room, there's actually enough of a lip that it'll be pretty close, but it's going to be so close you're not going to notice that the wood floor is going to be bumping up against the white baseboards. And we are doing that on purpose because to take all these baseboards, like we have done this before, and to take all these baseboards out, timing wise, we just don't have the time to do it. And it's just going to be a little bit coming up onto the trim, and you can see it's not going to be much. It's just going to be a hair here. It's not going to be very obvious. And then of course the quarter round, which is basically a quarter of a circle, will actually go then against this baseboard as well as the wood to actually hide any little variances from cutting and the placement of the wood, so you get that nice clean finish along the trim. But anyways, so what I'm going to do is you put it shiny side up, and you can feel the sheen of it. It may not look like it, but you can definitely feel the sheen. And I'm just going to roll this out to the other side of the room. And make sure that it is as square against this wall as you possibly can get, so that as you roll this out, and I'm just kicking this, because why hurt one's back doing this, right? And so then you can see it did a slight angle, so let's just move it over to the wall a little bit and come up, and then you can see it did a slight pop out, which I kind of expected it to, which was why I put it underneath it as best I could before I switched this. And then I'm just gonna come over here and square this up, and then we're gonna need this to actually go under there. So I'm gonna bring this out just a little bit so that I can cut this and make sure that it goes under enough of the side so that we have the full coverage. And according to the instructions, all you gotta do is staple this first row so that it stays down, and then you roll it out again, but you tuck this 4 inches underneath the second row. You tuck 4 inches underneath this row. So I'm going to be tucking the next layer underneath this by 4 inches. And I've got my measuring tape to make sure I do it at least 4 inches to get started. And then what happens is that as you do the succeeding rows, it says you shouldn't have to be stapling, but basically the concept is you put this down and then you put your wood floors on top of it. And like I said, done that before. It's usually a father-daughter project when we do this stuff. So I wanted to at least show you how we do wood floors here. And one other thing that we did do is when we bought the hickory wood for this room, because hickory is so strong, we actually bought, or I should say I bought for my dad, a special carbon tipped 12-inch blade, so that as he cuts the hickory, because hickory is so strong that it ends up dulling blades. So you want to make sure if you're doing this yourself that you get a carbon tipped blade, because it makes sure that it lasts longer. So I'm going to get started laying this down, and I'm going to make my cut here. You can use either scissors or a regular, cutting knife here. I believe, let's see if I can find it here. Here's the knife that my dad liked to use when he was cutting the floors, because it's got a blade on the end and he just ripped on through it. He said he found this better than using a special carpet cutter because the carpet cutter was impeding his progress, but this, it just flew through for him. So that's what we'll be doing, I'm going to be using scissors just because I've not used this as much and I'm more comfortable with the safety for me when it comes to scissors. My dad's very comfortable and confident using these things, but just for me, I'm not as comfortable. But I know that just comes with use and practice, and right now I'm just looking to get this done. So, but he did say that this was just awesome for doing his cutting the carpet out and the padding. And you can see here it was a cobalt tool that he used. Definitely not square. Oh, this paper should go under. Shouldn't it?
Nope.
No, okay.
That board's too long. Get me two shorter boards. Okay. Get me one much longer board, but not as long as the one you had. Ooh, look at that. Look how beautiful. That's a beautiful piece. Okay. Not long enough.
Not long enough.
And it's not long
Oh,
enough.
I see what you're trying to do.
Just you can just leave it right there.
Want that round. Nope, I need
Longer.
Does this want me to go back to problem solving? Oh, that's perfect.
There you go. Not long enough. It's close.
It's as close as I think we're gonna. Oh, no. Let me see if I can get one longer than that. That's too long. That's too long. Ooh, 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 ooh. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Here we go. Ho, ho, ho. We got that one. That's weird. The way this is, it makes it look like there's a gap.
Just give me time.
What's wrong?
See, I gotta go back that far.
So you need one just a little bit longer than that again?
Let me see here.
Or maybe you can switch out.
No, I need one longer than this.
Just by a little bit?
Just by a little bit.
I'm thinking this one. Yep. There you go.
Perfect.
That's what you were looking for?
No, but that's what we're going to use. Okay, and then this one here. Right there.
Not that one. Two. You can't have two small pieces side by side like that. Same height.
Hey, when I've got a long piece, Crystal, listen to me.
No.
Okay.
It's not my first rodeo, but I don't think that piece should go there.
Why? That's such a beautiful piece.
It is a beautiful piece. I'd like to actually enjoy it in my room. That's just where the doors close.
Close your door. Well, look at that.
Okay, that's not too bad. Okay.
Okay, let's don't lay any more wood.
Why not?
Honey, I haven't nailed anything yet.
Well, I still have to get you a few rows built anyways.
Well, you don't have to do it tonight.
Well, I know my daddy. He's going to be wanting to come in here and eat. So we have one layer of wood here. And then because of the bed and the fact that we need to get the bed onto the wood to finish the rest of the room, I basically did a second layer here on top of what's already been nailed. And then on the portion that's getting ready to be nailed, I made another set. So that way we can basically nail in this a little bit at a time and then bring this row forward and nail it so it'll actually go beyond the bed and my desk here so that we can get the bed and the desk onto this wood floor so that we can then finish this room. Now, in reference to the closet that I have here, this is the piece that's actually going to go across my threshold. And then I have one piece of wood that basically runs the edge to edge of the door here. And then what I've done is I took mainly the small pieces, and it's a bit like a jigsaw puzzle here. Let me turn the light. And so this piece will have to be cut on the end, but it should line up with this. This piece doesn't need to be cut, it's perfect. This piece needs to be cut, that piece needs to be cut, that piece. But in general, you can see here, I've actually lined up the wood here so I can actually work on this, and there's no pop-ups. There's no wood here in this portion here needing to be cut because I actually lined up the wood and found pieces to go together. So, because everything's tongue and groove, tongue, and then the groove, and the tongue goes into the groove, and the grooves are usually like that, and the tongue goes in between the two pieces, and that's why this is called a tongue and groove. And this is actually true hickory wood. So what I did to make it look a little bit more like a regular floor in this very small hallway space is I basically did long piece, short piece, then long piece, short piece, long piece, short piece, long piece, short piece. And so it made this pattern just a little bit here so it wasn't too uniform right down the middle. And then I was a little bit disappointed in this. I loved this beautiful pattern in this wood, but sadly on the run they did a really bad job here and it cut the wood. So what I did is I purposely put this, even though I wanted it in the center of the room, I actually put this here in the hallway. So what we can do is cut right here and it actually will fix this beautiful wood because the only issue is this end. And so I made it so that it was actually long enough here so that we would need to cut off that portion, and then it'll make this particular road beautiful. Do the same thing here, and then here I pretty much almost finished. Now what I did do, which is a little bit different than just laying the floor down, is I decided to make a little center focal point here of the darker wood that had this beautiful pattern to it. And so I'm working the rest of my wood around this beautiful center dark portion. But you can see I'm practically done, and I did this in one day, which is pretty awesome. So actually going tomorrow, I'm going to finish up these white areas here so that we'll be good to go in regards to getting this in there. So yeah, this is coming along really nice. And of course I laid down my paper on all the corners first, and I made sure I did the overlap that the directions required of at least 4 inches. And I of course showed you this room before I laid down the wood because I had the paper on it. But you can see it's just very beautiful, and you know, not a lot of cuts needing to be done. And actually the less cuts you do, the more wood you have, which means you actually have more to work with. And you can see like right here, this piece, all it needs cut off is actually the tongue, and it'll slide right in there and join with that piece. So I tried to do that too. So, you know, play around with the wood to make sure that you can get the best alignment so you don't have to do so many cuts, because the less cuts you make, the more wood you save, the more time, the more labor, and the more money and all that. So yeah, this part is just perfect. So nothing has to be done here. It's just a beautiful wood. So yeah, we're getting things going. So at this point, I pretty much finished laying the closet. And actually, when I opened up another box, I was actually able to switch out some of the pieces I thought would need cutting for those that didn't. So I actually have less cuts that need to happen now in the hallway than I did before. And it also makes a lot easier to step in here than trying and go, that one board popped up, don't step on that. Okay, so because you do wood floors from left to right so that your tongue and groove can line up just right, and it also allows you the ability to come in and you basically, let's see if I can show you, I'm going to purposely use this board. It allows you to come in, and what you do is you flip it opposite, and then you would cut the difference of the place where it's grooved instead of tongue, of where you need it to be lengthwise on the right side. So then you can take the remaining piece and use it as the top portion on the left side. This particular one I actually had perfectly fit, but when I moved all the boards this way, it popped up. But you can see I've got everything really laid out. Now, I purposely left that piece empty because as these pieces are nailed in, the space between each one of these is actually going to go away as it's nailed in. So I purposely left that one gapped because it's a question of which row is going to end up there. It's definitely not going to be this one because this one's going to come forward. But I'm thinking it's going to be either this row or this row. And in that case, we would actually have to notch the piece of wood to fit in the L right there. So I finished laying these. And then, of course, like I mentioned before, I created this beautiful pattern here in the middle where it's more of the darker wood that gives it a little bit more dimension in here. And then at the very last row, I purposely stacked 3 different sections. So 1, 2, 3. And I laid them one across the other because I got to the point where I opened up boxes and everything was long pieces. I didn't have any medium or short pieces to work with. So I had to pick long pieces that I liked and that wouldn't hopefully have too much cut off in order to make the last row here work. But because as each row gets nailed in, the rows need to be more because of each space then going away. So I purposely had 2 rows and then I thought, well, just in case, I'll throw in a 3rd row. So that way we don't have to stop when we start nailing these in tomorrow. So this has turned out beautifully. You can see it's got beautiful texture going on. Very much of an alternating with the seams, because that's another thing you need to do, is make sure your seams aren't perfectly lined up with the row next to it. It needs to be staggered. But it turned out quite beautiful in here with the hickory wood. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to leave it nail, and then tomorrow we'll actually be nailing this all in, and so hopefully I can get back in here and have my closet space ready to refill because right now it's very empty and 2 other rooms are absolutely jam-packed with all my clothes, my bedding, everything that was pretty much in my bedroom. And so I'm looking forward to getting back in here and sleeping in my own bed. OMG, I'm so looking forward to sleeping in my own bed again. I'll tell you what, sleeping where I've been sleeping has not been pleasant. So I'm looking forward to being back in here and ready to go. And in the interim, I'm so proud with how this turned out, with the beauty of it. So this has just turned out gorgeous. Okay, so one other thing I remembered that I should mention is I've been using these DeWalt knee pads that have rubber surface here so it protects the wood, and on the inside it's actually cushioned and it's got gel in there so it conforms to the knees. I found it does have this top strap, but I found it was messing with my circulation and it was very, very uncomfortable. So I basically just wrapped it around and I used the bottom Velcro section here. And what it's provided me the ability to be is be on my knees laying these floors without any pain or discomfort associated with using your knees because I was using these knee pads. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that this will work for everyone because everybody has a different shape and size and the way their knees are designed is different. However, I found that I could mosey this thing down my petite leg and get it to the position that I needed to work for me. So if this is something that you will find helpful, I know I certainly did. Not only can this be used for laying wood floors, but these are all-purpose ones. They make different ones, but this is the all-purpose version. So you can use this in gardening, you can use this for cement work, laying down wood floors, for example. But I just found this so helpful in getting this project done because it did protect my knees, and I've been on my knees doing this for quite a while. This is actually day 2. So, so far so good because it turned out pretty good for me in regards to my knees and them being taken care of. So I was very happy with how everything turned out. So I just wanted to mention that while it was fresh in my mind because I took these off forgetting I had them on and wanted to mention these were just so invaluably helpful. Thanks.
I'm in there. Okay, let's nail that baby. Then we can move forward.
And that we're cutting out just because that nail messed up, right?
Yeah. Okay, there you go. You will take care of those for me. Put them in that box. Okay, there you go. You will take care of those for me. Put them in that box.
Do I need to do the plier thing? No.
Go to some bedroom.
Huh?
That'll work for now.
So you're nailing in the tongue?
No, not really. I'm out of nails.
Did it work? And what's that, a spreader?
It's actually a clamp, and I just turned things around the other way.
Also, it's considered more of a tension.
So it turns into a spreader.
Ah. That's pretty cool.